Once upon a time, there lived a boy who dedicated his life to the sword. The boy with blue eyes stared intently ahead. In front of him was another man with blonde hair. The latter swung his sword at him and told him to die, but the brunette didn't even move. At that moment, he pulled out his sword, the blade of which was gleaming blue. The blonde almost struck the guy, but the latter blocked it, after which he managed to break the opponent's sword into two parts with his sword. This guy loved the sword and lived for it. At this time, blood began to flow from the corner of the blonde's mouth. It flowed down his face. Over time, the brunette was awarded an honorary title, given only to those who mastered the art of fencing. This guy was called the Sword Saint. He had long, dark hair, and he was cutting through the air with his sword, the blade of which left a blue glow behind it. He walked, and around him, several swords were stuck in the ground. Time passed, and the ancient Sword Saint was reborn. He stepped foot on the ground of the mortal realm again. Now the guy looked different. He had short, dark hair. He stood in front of a huge building and said that this is it. It was the first academy of the royal capital. The main character was reincarnated with memories from his past life, and he was named Lews. He does not know why he was reincarnated, but the boy came to this academy to learn the art of swordsmanship again. Lews said that this academy is incredibly huge. The protagonist thought that just finding the exam room was a problem. He wondered where he should go. Then his gaze caught on something. He turned his head to the right and saw a crowd of people. He thought that there were quite a lot of people there. He became interested. After that, Lews decided to approach them. He turned to the blonde, apologized to him, and said that he needed to pass the exam for the fencing department, after which he asked if he could tell him where it was, to which the blonde asked him again about the fencing department, after which he turned to the others and said that they had a unique person who was entering the fencing department. The main character looked at him with a puzzled expression. He looked very puzzled. He asked him if it was really strange, to which the blonde said that fencing was already outdated. In their century, magic reigns everywhere. It would not be an exaggeration to say that this academy exists only for magicians. The main character thought to himself that magic was really in high esteem now. In his past life, this skill had literally just been discovered. Lews said that if magic had advanced so much, then swordsmanship, which was the standard method of combat, should be even more advanced now. To which the blonde asked if he was even listening to him. Other people started talking about how he was just from the countryside. He had never even tried magic. He probably had no idea how useless wielding a sword was. The blonde said that maybe he was right. After that, the guy turned to the main character and said that this was a great chance for him to show him the greatness of magic. In any case, he still wouldn't be able to get there. He would just put himself in an awkward position. The blonde man, with a wide smile on his face, asked that if he couldn't pass the test, it wouldn't be a problem. At that moment, the main character watched in shock as the guy decided to use magic against him. He launched a huge magic ball at him, but he easily dodged it. The protagonist looked to the left and realized that the attack had almost hit his head, but he managed to move to the side at the last moment. After that, Lews happily said that this is modern magic. Now his expectations of modern swordsmanship have increased even more. The blonde began to get angry at his words. He cursed out loud. The guy started talking about what he had already told him more than once about magic being much more powerful than a sword. After that, he started casting spells again. The protagonist watched in shock as he created magic. After that, he moved towards the guy, then grabbed his hand, and then with a light movement of his hand, he laid the guy on the floor. It was clear that it did not take him much effort. The blonde lay on the ground and thought about what had happened, how it had happened. He hadn't expected this from his opponent. The protagonist, without turning to him, said that he apologized to him if his approach caught him off guard. After that, he turned to him with a sweet smile on his face and said that the guy's magic really caught him off guard. Then the main character said that he was in a hurry, so he was saying goodbye to him for now. After that, he went to look for the place where the exam was taking place. At that moment, his friends ran up to the blonde to help him get up. The blonde asked what the guy had just done to him. His friend replied that he hadn't been able to see anything. It was clear that they were all in shock. At this moment, the main character was moving along the corridors of the academy. He was already asking out loud where the fencing department was. He thought about how much time he had just wasted, and this campus was huge. At this rate, he would definitely miss his scheduled exam. At that moment, as he was moving quickly along the corridors, a girl called out to him and greeted him. She came closer to him and asked him seriously what he was doing. The main character immediately turned in her direction. The girl said that she had been watching the guy wandering around for a long time. She assumed that perhaps he had gotten lost. At first, the main character was surprised, and then a little tensely said that she was right. Everything was so. The girl then asked him if he was really looking for a place to hold the fencing department exam, to which Lewis replied that that was exactly what he was doing. After that, the main character asked her if she was also going to the fencing department, to which the girl answered positively. Then the guy thought that the very fact that she was here meant something. After that, the main character pointed his finger at her and said that she must have gotten lost, just like him. The stranger was shocked by his conclusions. She told him not to point, then added that she didn't know what he was thinking, but he clearly got it all wrong. The girl said that she had already passed the exam, to which the main character lost touch with the world a little, after which he asked what she was saying. The stranger said that she called out to him because she thought he was lost and needed help. After that, she asked him if he could just tell her whether he needed help or not. The main character was taken aback, and then asked her to take him to the right place. He really wants to enter the fencing department. The girl said that everything was fine, she didn't know what his motives were, but it was her suggestion, so she would take him there. To which Lewis thanked her, and then said that he hadn't introduced himself yet. The main character smiled and said his name, then added that he was born in a village on the border. It was clear that he was behaving very friendly, to which the girl first looked away, then thought about whether she should give her name, and then said that her name was Sierra Garnett. The main character asked her name again, after which he said with a smile on his face that he was pleased to meet her. The girl clearly did not expect such a reaction. Her eyes were wide open in surprise. She stated as a fact that he really didn't know anything. The protagonist immediately asked her what was wrong, to which Sierra said that no, everything was fine, it was even good. Lewis came closer to her and asked her to be his guide, to which she responded positively, but added that they had to do something first. Sierra came closer to him, grabbed his tie, and told him that he had an exam coming up, so he should make sure he looked neat. This tie was tied wrong. This time she would tie it for him, but he had to learn how to do it himself. The girl literally straightened his tie in an instant so that it looked presentable. The guy was surprised. She said that tomorrow he would have to do it himself. The protagonist said that she was a real master, to which Sierra replied that anyone could do it if they learned. They didn't have much time, so they needed to hurry. After some time, they came to the examination ground of the fencing department. There were several swords, a man who was conducting the examination, and also armor, on which, apparently, the examination was conducted. The protagonist asked the girl if this was really the place, to which she replied that it was. It was the official examination ground for the fencing departments. The guy said that this site is very different from the site for the Faculty of Magic. The girl did not know what to answer to this. Sierra told him to hurry up and get in line. His time would soon come. To which the protagonist said that he had a question. She immediately asked him what the question was. Lewis looked at her a little tensely and asked if the fencing department was really unpopular. To which she asked him if he had only just realized that. Sierra said that only those who want to get a graduation diploma come here, or guys who just like it and want to enter the fencing department at the academy. The girl said that, in the end, they would be subjected to ridicule from the Department of Magic throughout their stay here. In this world where magic is developed to such a degree, swordsmen are considered to be of lower status than wizards. This is a well-known fact. To which the main character replied that he understood everything, that magicians rule this academy. It was obvious that he thought about this moment. However, the guy immediately smiled and said that it was interesting in itself. The girl looked at him in shock and asked what he had said, to which the main character said that he was grateful to Sierra for her help, after which he said that he would go and pass this exam. Then Lewis walked towards the examiner. The girl looked at his back in shock and only agreed with his words. There was no other reaction from her. At this point, the man said that number 15 would be the next to take the test. The aforementioned student agreed. The protagonist watched the events closely. There was a small platform on which the armor in question stood. The guy was holding a sword in his hands, preparing to strike. After that, putting all his strength into the blow, the student swung and struck with a loud cry. Sparks flew from the armor. Then the student struck the armor again and again. Lewis thought that now everything was clear to him. It seemed that this was the reason why there were fewer and fewer fencers. He thought that they didn't even have basic sword skills. Their stance, if you put their skills aside, was very low level. At that moment, the examiner called out to him. The protagonist asked again whether he was addressing him, to which the man asked him whether he had also come to the exam, to which Lewis responded positively and said that it was nice to meet him. The man told him to hurry up and not waste his time on something as trivial as the fencing department. The protagonist clearly did not like the man's words. He walked up to the table, picked up the sword, and then thought that this was probably cruel treatment. Then the boy turned to the examiner and said that he had a question, to which the latter, without looking up, asked what had happened. The protagonist asked if he would have to pay for the damage if he broke the armor that was used for the exam. The man said that he made him laugh. This is an alloy armor created with magic ore and steel, known for its durability. Even a top-level mage would have a hard time destroying it. The examiner said that if the guy could break it, then by all means he should act. Lewis said that he understood everything. After that, the main character said that it would not be easy, and then swung his sword. The man watched him carefully. He realized that something was about to happen, so he tried to stop him. However, at that very moment, the guy literally cut the armor in half with one blow of his sword. A large column of dust rose up around. The examiner, as well as the other students present there and Sierra, were shocked that this had happened. The man asked what it was. He even cut through the chitin to the base, to which Lewis, with a smile on his face, said that it was surprisingly clean work. After passing the recent exam, he was admitted to the first academy of the royal capital. The protagonist was pleased. The guy stood in the room, put on the academy uniform, and then tied his tie. He started thinking about what would happen if he did that. He managed to tie a good tie. Today was the protagonist's first day of school. He was clearly looking forward to it, talking about how he wanted the day to begin already. The boy approached the main building of the academy with a smile on his face. He thought about his student life beginning. A smile automatically appeared on his face. At that moment, he was suddenly called out. The protagonist immediately turned around and saw that it was Sierra. The guy said with a smile on his face that they hadn't seen each other since the entrance exam, to which the girl simply mumbled. He asked her if something was wrong. Sierra was looking at him tensely at this moment, wondering what the name of the fencing technique he used during the exam was. It was obvious that this question was bothering her. At this moment, Lewis said that he understood everything. The main character asked her with a smile on his face if she was really interested in his tie. She was shocked by his question. The guy thanked her and said that this time he got it all done much faster than before. Lewis smiled widely, his eyes narrowing into slits. He said that the girl had been watching him since the exam. He was very grateful to her. It had really helped him. Sierra only blushed deeply at his words, and her eyes opened wide. Her mouth also opened. She began to make inarticulate sounds, after which she asked what he was talking about. Everything was not at all as he thought. After that, the girl turned away from him. Her face was blushing. She said that she didn't want to talk to him anymore, so she was leaving. The main character was taken aback. He didn't expect her to have such a reaction. And then the guy ran after her. He shouted at her to stop, because he didn't know where the classroom was. She turned around and told him not to follow her. After a while, they found themselves in class. The main character was lying on the desk. He put his hands on top of it, and his head on top of them. He was sleeping. Drooling was flowing from his mouth. The girl next to him was trying to study. She was tense from his behavior. Sierra hit him on the shoulder and asked him what he was doing. He should be more attentive. The guy woke up from her actions. He did not understand where he was. Lewis asked her if it was okay. She said it was okay, that's what the academy was for. The guy said that just listening to lectures wouldn't improve his fencing skills. At that moment, the teacher turned to them and very loudly and angrily told them to calm down, to which the girl shuddered and said that she was asking him for forgiveness. After that, the man made a face and said that they were losers in the fencing department. Sierra didn't like the words he said. The protagonist watched her attentively. The girl lowered her head. A tear was running down her cheek. She was holding a pen in her hands, and she was trembling. When the lesson was over, Lewis addressed her by name and apologized, saying it was his fault, after which he asked if she hadn't told him she would stop talking to him, to which she replied that she was irritated by his laziness. After that, the girl gathered her things and said that she would go to the gym. The main character immediately asked her about it. Sierra explained that after classes, they are free to use the training halls. They are well equipped, so most students go there to practice. Lewis said that he understood everything. The protagonist said that he definitely wanted to see it, so he would go with her, to which she said that he shouldn't even think about it. After some time, and much arguing, they got there. When they opened the door, they saw that it was all occupied. Lews said that he had imagined it differently. It seemed that the magic faculty had already occupied the hall. The protagonist turned to the girl and asked if this meant that the other training grounds were also occupied. Sierra thought about it, then said that this was not the case. She had an idea. Lews asked if it was true, and then said that they should hurry there, to which the girl replied that they needed to hurry before the Faculty of Magic took that place too. Sierra turned to him and wanted to tell him that they needed to go when they were called out and told to take care of themselves. At that moment, they were in shock. The girl turned around and saw a huge magic ball flying towards her. Her eyes were wide open, as was her mouth, after which there was a fairly strong explosion. Parts of the floor flew in different directions. When she opened her eyes, she saw that the main character was holding her in his arms. He looked very serious. It was clear that he wanted to sort out this situation. A moment later, the guy lowered her to the ground. The girl began to tell him that he had reacted so quickly. They both looked at the place where the blow had been. At that moment, a blonde guy called out to them. He asked if they were okay, explaining that his hand had slipped. It was clear that he was worried. He added that he was truly sorry. Then the guy looked at them more closely and realized that they were from the fencing department. His gaze immediately changed. He sighed heavily and then added that it would be better if he hit them. After that, the blonde turned around to walk away. At that moment, the main character called him, who was very outraged by his behavior. He asked if the guy was going to apologize to them. Sierra turned to Lews and said that it was all meaningless. He should just forget about it. Then she asked him if he didn't remember how the fencing department was treated in this academy. At that moment, the girl's face turned red with embarrassment. She, a little worried, said that she was grateful to him for saving her. To which the main character, with a smile on his face, told her not to worry. He was counting on her to show him that very training hall. The girl didn't argue with him. She just answered positively and said that they needed to go there, but he shouldn't expect anything cool. After some time, they came to the right place. Sierra told him that this was it. In front of them was a small one-story building. It was obvious that it was not in the best condition. When they entered, the girl said that there was no new equipment here, like in the academy's training hall, so it was worse. In addition, it was clear that the renovation inside also left much to be desired. The protagonist turned around smiling at her words and said that she was talking nonsense. That was more than enough for training, to which she asked if he was telling the truth, after which she added that she was glad to hear it. The guy walked up to the wall, touched it, and said that it was a wooden building, but it looked quite strong. After that, he looked at the floor and said that there were many worn parts, such as the floor. And indeed, if you looked closely, you could see that in some places there were missing pieces of wood on the floor, and the floor itself was in poor condition. The main character said that they can just fix the broken parts themselves. He likes this place. The girl at this time looked at him silently. She did not even know what to say. However, a moment later, Sierra, hesitating a bit, said that on the contrary, it was better not to go there, to which the guy asked if they couldn't fix it. The girl said that his actions could attract unwanted attention from the Faculty of Magic. The main character started talking about the Faculty of Magic this, the Faculty of Magic that, and then asked why everyone was so afraid of him. Sierra was shocked. She said that he really didn't know anything. If they find out that students are practicing fencing in the training hall, they will harass them. A student of the fencing department who asked for a fencing hall was denied his request, and then they treated him like a servant. She doesn't like the black uniform. It stands out too much. Then Lews asked if the regular uniform really makes such a big difference. The girl confirmed his words. She explained that those guys from the magic faculty wore a noble white uniform. There are white and black uniforms, and their differences are very colossal. The main character stared at the floor and asked if the Faculty of Magic was really that important. At that moment, the unknown entered the room and said that the students from the magic faculty were really very important, after which he asked if he understood. The girl shuddered in surprise. The stranger said that it was obvious when compared to the useless fencing faculty. Sierra stared at the guy with all her eyes. The protagonist saw that it was a white uniform, after which he said that the magic faculty had arrived. Lews asked sharply what they were doing in this room, to which the guy asked him about whatever he was saying, that he didn't know who he was. The protagonist calmly said that they had never met before, to which the unknown grimaced and said that he was a plebeian from the wilderness. After that, he turned to Sierra and asked her if she knew who he was. She didn't answer, so he asked her to introduce him to her friend already. The girl said that the guy's name is Ibram Vader, and he is considered to be the strongest first-year student in the Faculty of Magic. The latter stuck out his tongue and said that she had hit the nail on the head, after which he thanked her for the introduction. The main character repeated her words about him being the strongest. He asked her again about it, after which some kind of wild anticipation appeared on his face. The girl at that moment looked at her friend. She was shocked by his facial expression. Mentally, she asked what happened, why he was looking at him like that. The protagonist turned to Ibram and asked what the strongest freshman here wanted, to which the latter spread his arms out to the sides and said that he did not have any specific goal. He explained that the seniors had simply asked him to discipline the first-year students of the fencing department, and when he noticed that some students were acting suspiciously, he came here to scold them. The main character said that he had an incredible sense of smell, to which the girl replied that this guy's strength was incredible. It's better not to argue with him. Ibram spread his arms out to the sides and said that they would occupy this hall, after which he asked the protagonist if he was against it, to which the latter asked him what he was saying. Lews said that the magic faculty already had a great training hall. They didn't need to take up this space. To which the guy replied that it was true, in fact they had more facilities than they needed. After that, the guy jumped up to the main character, grabbed him by the clothes, and said that this is the reason he wants this particular hall. At the same time, he stuck out his tongue and grinned evilly. To which Lews asked what the point of that was, to which Ibram asked that he really didn't understand, after which he turned to the third man, called out to him, and told him to come over to them. Behind the freshman stood a guy, a blonde. It was the guy the protagonist had run into not long ago. Ibram, without looking at him, asked if Lews remembered him. The freshman reminded him that the main character had humiliated him during the entrance exam. The latter thought that it was the same guy. It was clear from his face that he recognized him. Lews asked if he really wanted to avenge him, to which the latter replied that the very fact that he raised his hand against his subordinate was absurd. In any case, he wanted to pay him back in kind. Ibram challenges him to a duel. The freshman grinned and asked if the protagonist knew about the duel system in the academy. It was obvious that he was enjoying the whole conversation. The main character's expression immediately changed. His eyes widened in surprise. He wanted to ask him about the duel system in more detail, but Sierra interrupted him and asked with excitement in her voice whether Ibram was really talking about a duel. The latter explained that when a dispute arises, the students fight one-on-one, after which the winner's demands are met. This has been an honorable rule since ancient times. The girl immediately turned to the main character and told him not to do it. There was no need for it. It was obvious that the very thought of a duel terrified her. Ibram immediately turned his attention to her, and it was obvious that he recognized her. The freshman smiled widely and asked if it was true that she was a member of the Garnett family. Sierra was shocked that she was recognized. She turned to look at him. Lews was watching this in shock. Ibram said that it would be better for saving the Faculty of Magic. He smirked at her, which scared her. After that, the guy said that everything was fine. He had decided. His demands were that they would give him this place, and that the two of them would become his subordinates. The girl started to say that it was unfair, that being in complete submission was too much. It seemed like Ibram was expecting such a reaction from the girl. At that moment, the main character interrupted her and said that it was his turn to set conditions. Lews said that his demands were that they would never go near that place again and would never look down on the fencing department again. After that, the guy narrowed his eyes and told the freshman to get out because he was annoying him, to which the latter agreed to his proposal. Ibram finally said that the duel would take place tomorrow, and for now the main character could enjoy his freedom. After that, the students of the magic faculty left the room. Sierra started screaming about what he was thinking. They should run right now. It is said that Ibram is the only one who became the first in the ranking in the first year, although the first place is usually taken by more experienced students. The main character took out his sword and then asked her if she was telling the truth. The girl was shocked and asked if he was serious about asking her such questions. After that, the guy turned to her and, with a smile on his face, told her not to worry so much. The enemy wouldn't even touch him. At the same time, his gaze was very strange, which made Sierra very tense. The day of the duel arrived. Many people gathered in the room to watch the free performance. Sierra thought about how she was the only spectator who was not from the magic faculty. After that, she looked ahead and wondered if the main character would be okay. At that time, the latter was standing on the platform with Ibram. Also next to them was a man with blonde hair. At that time, people were shouting at him that the freshman should show him what he was capable of, destroy him, grind him into dust. The main character looked only at his opponent. He said that there really were a lot of spectators here. To which Ibram asked with a smile on his face what had happened. Was he really afraid of becoming a laughingstock? To which Lews replied negatively with a smile on his face, and explained that he simply thought the magic faculty was surprisingly relaxed. The guy said that if you neglect training even for one day, it will definitely affect you in the future. It was obvious that these words touched the students from the magic faculty. Ibram also got angry at his words. His expression became more aggressive. He asked about whether he really thought he had the right to lecture them. After that, the freshman closed his eyes and started laughing. He turned to the main character and told him not to make him laugh. The other students in the magic department started shouting at Lews to know his place. He was the loser of the fencing department. He should take better care of himself than them. Ibram agreed with the guys and said that everything was exactly like that, even if he could never pick up a sword again, and he would have no one to complain to. At this time, the students began to shout about different things. The main character paid attention to them. Then one of them said that the fire magic of a first-year student is a terrible thing. Once, it happened that she turned the hand of the guy he hit into coal. It was obvious that the victim was in shock from what happened. The guy kept shouting that if all Lews was going to end up with was the inability to wield a sword, he should consider himself lucky, to which the latter asked if Ibram was using fire. Sierra watched this and thought that his fire magic was in the top 5 in the entire academy. Someone from the fencing department would not have a single chance of winning a duel with him. Ibram decided it was time to end this talk. He threw his hand behind his head, scratched his hair, and said that it was time for the strongest, that is him, to go on stage. The freshman then turned to the spectators in the stands and told them to simply watch what was happening in silence. The blonde man, who was standing next to them on the court, addressed them, calling them opponents, and then asked if they agreed with the terms of the duel. To which the main character resolutely replied that he agreed. Ibram grinned again and said that of course he agreed with everything and was ready. At this time, the students next to the girl began to talk about whether it was true that in case of loss, this guy would be a servant of the magic faculty. They had already begun to think about what they should entrust him with. Sierra was scared. The guys next to her looked at her carefully, because they knew she was from the fencing department. They were talking about how they couldn't wait for it to happen. The girl turned to them and simply shushed them. At this time on the court, Shakwis. The referee started telling them to take their positions. The guys immediately moved to the side so that there was more distance between them. After that, the blonde shouted loudly that they were starting their fight. Ibram, with an anticipatory expression on his face, said that Lews should not dare to lose too quickly. After that, the freshman directed an attack towards the protagonist and told him to consider it a greeting. The latter easily jumped aside from it. Ibram smirked. He was glad that the guy dodged. After that, he asked how long he would last. Several fire attacks flew towards him at once. The main character looked at what was happening with indifference. He saw these attacks, after which he moved towards Ibram, while he deftly dodged each magic ball. The first-year student said out loud that Lews was very nimble. The distance between them was getting smaller and smaller. He continued to attack him with his magic. Ibram started to get angry about the situation. He decided to attack him even harder. Sierra saw this and asked with surprise in her voice that he really decided to attack with fireballs from both sides at once. The guy sitting next to her started to get indignant and say that the main character should stop running already, since he definitely won't win with that. The girl was simply shocked by what was happening. Sierra watched Lews and wondered if he wasn't afraid of magic. A simple sword wouldn't save you from magic, so why was he acting like that? Looking more closely, she wondered why the protagonist couldn't take his eyes off Ibram. The latter, at that moment, was thinking that following the enemy's gaze was the most important skill for a swordsman. It was almost impossible to follow the swordmaster's blows with the eyes, but the look of the man he had encountered before, everything was different. It allowed one to predict the direction of the blows. The gaze indicated the trajectory faster than any attack movement. What the protagonist has now developed as a sword saint is also useful in combat against mages. He looked at his opponent carefully. Ibram was looking at Lews at that moment and wondering why he couldn't hit him. It was obvious that he was in shock. He said out loud that the guy should stop flickering in front of him. Then he used fire serpent magic. Now the freshman's fire was the head of a three-headed snake, which was moving towards Lews. Sierra immediately shouted that it was a three-headed snake, so it would not be able to attack effectively. The girl looked closely at the main character, at his concentrated face, and thought about what he had in mind. At the same moment, Lews ran very quickly towards the three-headed snake. Sierra screamed loudly that he was really stepping on him. It was very reckless. Her face was completely terrified. The protagonist, when he got closer to the attack, thought that this is what a fight against a mage is like. He had never had to fight mages before. He said that it was very interesting. With a happy smile on his face, he swung his sword in different directions, thanks to which he managed to cut this attack. The three-headed snake disappeared. Sierra, all the students present in the room, as well as the first-year student Ibram himself, were shocked that the main character managed to destroy such magic. The latter was already approaching his opponent at that very moment. With a crazy smile on his face, he said that his blood had not boiled like that for a long time. Ibram was in shock. He did not know what to do. The freshman thought that this technique leaves a big gap at close range. Did Lews really see it the first time? This fact surprised the guy very much. However, Ibram smirked and said out loud that the main character really thought that he had not taken countermeasures, after which he put his hand right in front of the guy's face, and then he attacked him fiercely with his fire magic. There was a huge explosion, and there was a lot of smoke around. The students of the magic faculty watched in anticipation. The main character flew away after a flash of such magic. Ibram, looking at him, said that he was a stupid person. It was all over. The freshman was already celebrating his victory when Lews opened his eyes and calmly told him to keep going. Ibram was shocked that the guy was alive and well. The protagonist began to stand up and told the freshman to show him his next move. The latter let out a nervous laugh and asked him what he was talking about. Ibram looked at him in horror and thought that he didn't understand. He had hit the target exactly, so why was the main character safe and sound? Lews commented on how the freshman was so good at fire control, then asked that there must be more to it. The latter became angry at his words. Ibram told the protagonist to be quiet, after which he began to use his magic even more actively. Magical surges formed in both of his hands. After that, the freshman attacked the main character with both hands. The blows themselves were strong, but the latter managed to easily avoid them. The guy did not expect this from his opponent. Ibram was very tense. Sweat was running down his face, and he was thinking that at this rate his magic would quickly run out. The first-year student cursed under his breath, and then mentally asked himself why he had to bother with some pathetic swordsman for so long. He kept thinking that this had never happened before, but at that moment the main character interrupted his thoughts and asked if he had run out of tricks. Ibram did not expect this. Then the main character, with a calm, even slightly arrogant face, looked at the freshman and said that he was an unworthy person. These words made Ibram very angry. He put his hands in front of him and then shouted loudly and also told him not to come near him. The freshman decided that he had nothing left to lose, so he used his most powerful magical weapon. It was a huge sphere that was moving towards Lews. The latter immediately pulled out his sword. Ibram, looking at him in disbelief, thought that this couldn't be. He could even defeat his fire cannon with ease. He looked ahead and saw that the protagonist, with an inscrutable face, quickly cut through his entire attack. He asked himself if he had really done it so easily. The judge who was watching this fight was also shocked because he had never seen anything like this before. At that very moment, the main character's sword was near Ibram's throat. The freshman looked up at the guy. He started shaking with fear. He said that he had never heard of such a thing. The spectators in the stands were also shocked by what was happening. They wondered if there really was a sword technique that could break magic. The first-year student turned to the main character and asked who he was. The latter looked at him calmly. At that moment, the judge announced that Lews was the winner of the duel. At that moment, an unknown person stood above and said that it seemed like they had an interesting swordsman. It was a blonde girl with long hair. She was wearing a light uniform, which indicated that she belonged to the Faculty of Magic. She said that Lews seemed very reliable. Sometime later, in the hall of the fencing faculty, people on the street were asking if the others had heard that it seemed like a first-year student from the fencing faculty had defeated a guy from the magic faculty in a duel. People were shocked. They asked if it was true, explaining that he had not defeated a simple man, but the strongest freshman Ibram. Sierra, listening to all this, thought that Lews was becoming a real celebrity. The girl thought that the guy simply cut the magic. The sword technique surprised her very much. Sierra thought that the main character had already attracted their attention, and then wondered if everything would be okay with him. As it turned out, the latter was summoned by the stranger from the duel. She turned to him and said that she asked him to forgive her for such a sudden challenge. The girl said that her name was Alicia Soldian, and she was entrusted with the post of student council president at this academy, to which the main character, who was clearly surprised, hesitated and said that his name was Lews, to which the girl replied that she knew it. The guy asked her what she wanted to talk to him about, to which Alicia said that he was so impatient, first they should do something else. She turned to him with a very sweet smile on her face and asked if they could have some tea to relax a little. It was obvious that she was trying to win him over. The protagonist responded with consent, after which they moved to the area with sofas. They sat opposite each other. Between them was a table with a teapot and their mugs of tea on it. The guy looked at the girl very carefully. He thought that she had some special aura. He did not take his eyes off while he drank the tea given to him. The protagonist thought that she seemed kind on the outside, but there seemed to be no flaws in her. The girl was calmly drinking her tea at that moment, but the guy was haunted by various thoughts. He thought that he was standing in a room, as if surrounded by countless blades. At that moment, Alicia turned to him and asked him if he liked the tea. Thus, she tore him out of his thoughts. He immediately asked her again what she had said. The girl smiled sweetly, after which she said that the guy simply had such a happy smile on his face. The protagonist at that moment was thinking about how his curiosity gets the better of him when he faces a strong opponent. He hesitated out loud and didn't know what to answer, to which Alicia, with a smile on her face, said that she understood everything. She realized that the time had come, and then suggested that he get down to business. They immediately put their cups of tea back on the table. The girl asked him if it was true that he had defeated Ibram in a duel shortly after enrolling, to which he replied in the affirmative. She added that the guy's talent stood out from the other first-year students in the magic department. Alicia explained that an ordinary student would not be able to lay a finger on him, or even scratch him. Therefore, the main character is undoubtedly special. The latter, looking straight at her, could not find what to answer. The girl said that she had one request for him. She wants him to take part in a raiding tournament that will take place in 2 months. The protagonist immediately asked her about this event. Alicia said that once a year, a tournament is held to reveal the true strength of the academy students, regardless of whether they are mages or swordsmen. The top 10 receive the honorary title of ranking. It is truly a magnificent event. The main character said that he understood everything, and then asked why he wanted him to participate, to which the girl replied that she wanted him to increase the level of the mages. The guy immediately asked her about it again, to which Alice replied that because of its arrogance, the magic faculty is degrading more and more every year. The girl added that then a swordsman appeared who managed to defeat the potential ranking fighter. She immediately remembered the final scene from the fight. Alicia looked at the protagonist sweetly and asked if it was true that there was nothing more inspiring for them. Lews asked her if there would be strong magicians there, to which the girl replied that of course there would be, after which she also said that there was another nuance. She covered one eye and said that she was ranked 3rd. It was clear that she was proud of it, but also trying to convey information to the hero. The main character said that everything was clear to him, everything was fine, he accepted her invitation, to which she replied that she was very grateful, after which she thanked him for it. Lews said that if he could fight strong opponents like that, he would be happy, after which he left the room where the girl was. Alicia followed him closely with her gaze, then smiled. Her eyes turned into narrow slits. She laughed sweetly. The girl thought that the academy was immersed in darkness, after which she asked whether the main character would become its light. The kingdom of Revelsia, the royal capital. The protagonist happily said that Sierra had helped him out a lot. He thanked her. The latter was not very happy about it. She, looking at him attentively, asked why he was so carefree. At that time, they were in the academy. When the main character returned to her, she asked him why the student council president needed him. But he interrupted her and told her not to think that he wanted to ask her out on a date. But there was one thing. Sierra asked him if he was a stupid person for suddenly deciding to do this, to which the guy replied that he wanted to go shopping in the royal capital. The girl immediately asked him about this fact, to which the guy replied that his sword was damaged during the duel. Just think that the Academy's swords are so flimsy. The main character turned to her and said that he wouldn't be able to find the right store himself, to which she indignantly asked what it mattered to her. She didn't have time. And suddenly an idea came to her mind. She quickly agreed with him and said that she understood everything. She would show him the way, to which Lewis said that this was excellent. Sierra said that in return she would ask him for a favor. After some time, they were already walking along the streets of the capital. The main character said that it was something. It was obvious that he liked all of it. The guy said that everyone here is so friendly and so lively. It's the first time he's been in such a noisy place. The protagonist turned to the girl and said that she must be hungry, after which he handed her some food and said that he had bought it for her too. Sierra asked in surprise if it was really for her. The girl started saying that she shouldn't have done it. She didn't want to be in his debt, to which Lewis said that she was kind of weird. She shouldn't worry about it. Sierra blushed deeply and said that the favor she had mentioned was much more important. The protagonist was eating at the time, and he made it clear that he was listening to her attentively. The girl asked if it was true that he had cut the magic. She asked him how he had done it. Sierra said that the spell could not be broken so easily. There must be some secret, after which she asked him to share it with her. The latter was shocked by her words. The protagonist wondered if magic really couldn't be cut. It was clear that he was a little nervous because it was different from what he knew. The girl turned to him and asked if he was listening to her, to which the guy replied that he was apologizing to her, after which he added that it was quite simple. If we talk about the basics, the sword technique that is followed and the sword technique of this era may differ. He said out loud that when they returned to the academy, he would show her in the dojo. After some time they came to the building. Sierra said that they came, she will wait for him here, so he should go to the store alone. The guy asked why she decided so. He offered to go together, to which the girl lowered her eyes to the floor and said that she had her own reasons. At the same time, her face was very tense. The main character looked at her in shock. He did not understand what was happening and why she was behaving this way, but out loud he agreed with her words. After that, the guy entered the store. He immediately asked the seller that he needed a sword. He said that it should be somewhere here. The main character said that he wants a cheap and durable, and also a very sharp sword. He has already drawn the ideal weapon in his head. The seller told him that he was also confident in the strength, but recommended the ones with sharpened ends. Lewis leaned over the swords placed in front of him and said that he understood everything. The main character happily said that he didn't need sharpness, he would rather take a strong one. But his face was a wide smile. He grabbed one of the swords in his hands. The seller, looking at him, said that he was a strange guy. It was obvious that he was very surprised. The man said that he thought all swordsmen valued sharpness, to which the boy replied that sharpness can be compensated for by skills. It is much more scary to be left without a sword in the middle of a fight. The salesman thanked him for his purchase and said that they were the only gun shop, to which the guy replied that he would definitely come back. The man said that if fencing had not gone out of fashion, it would have been better, and laughed. The man said that if the previous sword saint had done his job properly, everything would have been different. The main character immediately wanted to ask him what he meant, but then shouts were heard from the street. He asked what was going on, to which the seller replied that there was probably a fight. This alley was not very safe. The man turned to him and told him to be careful, to which the guy turned around and with a smile on his face, said that he was grateful to him. At that moment, the protagonist quickly ran out into the street and saw that Sierra had grabbed one of the guys by the clothes. He called out her name, to which the girl replied that he should stand there. Sierra said it was just between them. She was very tense, but the guys were enjoying what was happening. The black-haired boy asked her if she had asked him to repeat it. And then, looking at Lewis, he began to talk about how hard it must have been when her ancestor, the sword saint, was a war criminal. The girl was very angry at his words. She wanted to tell him how bad a person he was, but the black-haired man used his tying skill. After that, several ropes flew towards her, which wrapped around her body, pinning her arms to her torso. She asked in confusion what was happening. At that moment, Sierra fell to the ground. The boys started laughing at her and saying that she was so pathetic. They said that this is what happens when the fencing faculty challenges the magic faculty. The second guy said that she is also a beauty. The latter reached out to her with his hands and suggested having fun. The girl closed her eyes and said that they were bad people. At that moment, the main character appeared in front of her, grabbing one of the guys by the hand, thereby stopping him from touching Sierra's body. The latter was in shock. She called out his name and started to say that it was her problem, but he interrupted her and said that she had no right to complain when she couldn't even move. The girl realized that he was right, because she was lying on the ground and couldn't even get up on her feet. She clenched her teeth tightly. The black-haired man immediately asked if she really said Lewis. He asked if it was really the first-year student who defeated Ibram. He said that if they beat the main character, they would become cooler than Ibram. This would bring them closer to the rating. At the same time, his look became very crazy. The guy said that he would do it, after which he used his magical powers and immediately directed them towards the main character. The latter at that moment turned to the girl and asked if she was ready, to which she simply called him by name, thereby she wanted to stop him. Lewis said that everything was fine, he would show it to her right here. Sierra immediately opened her eyes wide and asked what he meant. The main character turned to her and then told her to watch his every action carefully. The guy pulled out his sword, which began to shine. At that moment, the magical attack that the guy had released was approaching them. The main character literally cut through the attack intended for them with one blow. It was clear that he did it with ease. Then the guy turned to his enemies and told them to go away. The guys were very scared of this since they had not encountered him yet, after which they really ran away. The main character said out loud that the magic faculty definitely lacked courage. He was not particularly pleased with this fact. Lewis then turned to Sierra and asked if she had seen everything, to which she asked how that was even possible. She said that the sword was emitting light, after which she asked if it was magic, to which he looked at her in shock. The main character and the girl were in their training room. It seemed like they were having a duel with each other. At one point, Sierra fell to the floor. The guy asked her what happened. At the same time, she was holding a sword in her hand. The main character looked at her directly. He said that she was doing everything wrong. It was obvious that these words hurt her. She said that she really couldn't do it. She asked how she knew what to do, to which the main character spread his arms wide and said that he taught her, after which he asked if that wasn't true. Sierra asked him if he really thought it was that easy. It was magic. The main character with a calm expression said that this was not true at all. The girl was surprised by his words. Lewis said that he doesn't have any magical powers. Theoretically, he can't use magic. Then the girl with a stern expression asked how he did all these things. It was clear that she was quite skeptical about the words. The main character scratched his chin. It was clear that he was thinking. He had just started talking about what he didn't know how to explain, when at that very moment they heard screams that it was him. Lewis and Sierra immediately looked towards the source of the sound. The guys who had attacked them earlier were standing there, as well as another unknown. The black-haired guy started saying that it was him, and the second guy added that it was he who attacked them. The unknown guy asked again if it was him. After that, the latter turned to the guys and said that they dared to touch the students of the magic faculty. At this time, Sierra turned to Lewis and asked what they would do. Someone was coming. The guy turned to the girl and said that he was using them as an example. It would be a great opportunity, since it was all heading towards a fight anyway. It was obvious that the unknown was unhappy that he was ignoring him. The latter asked if they really thought they could stick their noses up just because they were from the fencing department. Then he would definitely teach them a lesson. After that, the guy used his magic power, namely the stone block skill. At that moment, Sierra said that he was attacking, to which the main character told her that, firstly, in fencing there is a concept of release. He was very focused. The guy turned to the girl and told her to concentrate. She should tense her stomach, as if she was going to scream. Then she will feel a coldness in the depths of her navel. It will remind her of spring water. If she allows this water to spread throughout her body. After that, he stopped a boulder flying towards them with one hand and also continued his speech and said that her skin would become stronger. It was clear that these actions did not cause him any discomfort. The main character, continuing to hold these stones, looked at them and said that the muscles were also becoming stronger. The guy also added that if she concentrated this feeling in her sword, just at that moment, his sword began to glow. The protagonist said that the weapon would be able to cut through even magic. At the same moment, he demonstrated to her how he cut through the entire attack of this guy with the sword. The latter was shocked by how easily Lews cut through his magic. The guys standing nearby were also shocked, after which the three of them fled the place. Lews said with a smile on his face that it was something like this. Sierra looked at him with distrust in her eyes and asked if she could really repeat something like that. He replied that she first needed to learn how to awaken this feeling. She shouldn't worry, he would do his best to teach her, because friends should help out their comrades. Sierra lowered her gaze, then repeated after him the last word about friends. The protagonist turned to her and asked her permission to inquire. She immediately asked what he wanted. These guys said that her ancestor was a sword saint. It was obvious that she was surprised by this question. The girl said that the story was quite complicated, but she didn't have time to finish. Lews interrupted her and asked her to share with him he wants to know. It was obvious that this decision was difficult for Sierra. At first, her lips were pressed together. Then she began her story. She said that their family descended from the last holy sword. The protagonist was surprised by her words. The girl said that he was defeated by a mage, thus proving the decline of fencing. This became a disgrace for all swordsmen. This is what they say about the last saint of the sword. Sierra also said that since then, everything has remained the same, swordsmen are despised, magicians constantly laugh at them. The girl also said that she of course resisted this. When she was attacked by magicians, she took out her sword and attacked back. However, fencing was useless against magic. She couldn't do anything, so she lost to the magic students every time. The girl held a sword in her hand. She asked why swordsmen had to suffer. Her hand was shaking. She said that if only the Garnett family, if only the sword saint was more skilled, everything would be different. That's why she had to become stronger. Angry tears flowed down her face. The protagonist called her by name, and then thought that it meant that the name of the holy sword was passed down through generations. And yet, fencing had fallen into decline. At this point, they were interrupted. The door to the room opened and Alicia entered, turning to them and saying that she was asking for forgiveness. As usual, a sweet smile appeared on her face. Her eyes turned into slits, and she asked whether she had really disturbed him. Sierra looked at the girl in disbelief, then said her name out loud. She even stopped crying, because it was so unexpected. Then the girl sharply asked Alicia what she wanted. The latter was surprised by this, and asked if they were really afraid of her. Sierra answered positively, then asked why someone like her would want to get involved with the fencing department, to which Alicia asked if she also wanted to master the secret of Lewis's technique. At the same time, this question sounded as if she already knew the answer to it. After that, the girl suddenly flew up to the main character, grabbed his hand, and said that she wanted to see it. That's why she came here. Sierra watched what was happening in shock from the side. The latter asked the girl what she was doing, to which Alicia replied that she had never met a swordsman capable of defeating a mage. Sierra turned to Lews and said that she knew she was going to spy on him, to which he replied that he wouldn't mind showing her. Alicia, like Sierra, was shocked by his words. The protagonist turned to his friend and told her not to worry, it was useless for someone who didn't have a ball. Alicia turned to the girl and said that she understood what she wanted to say, and she said his name. The latter, in shock, asked if she really knew her name. The girl answered positively. After that, the blonde extended her hand to them, called them by name, and asked what they thought about visiting her estate. Sierra asked tensely what she was even talking about, to which the girl replied that it was a good opportunity. The blonde winked with one glance, after which, with a smile on her face, she said that she wanted them to get to know each other better. The guys entered a wide hall. It looked empty. They were interested in what kind of place it was. It turned out to be the girl's personal training room. Lews and Sierra were confused. The mistress of the estate found it funny. The second guest looked especially strange. She asked the girl what was wrong, but she still found it hard to trust anyone from the magic faculty. She still had the feeling that the mistress looked down on them, but the girl brushed it all off as paranoia, and besides, the reason for this attitude towards the swordsmen was their lack of strength. They themselves believed that it was hard to argue with that. She felt awkward and apologized for her possibly harsh words, since she didn't look down on the students of the fencing department anyway. Soldian family has been closely associated with swordsmen for generations, and their lineage cannot be discussed without mentioning them. However, Alicia still doubted that these words would be enough to convince the girl, which is why she decided to invite her there. She suggested that Lews was interested in her. It turned out to be true. The guy confirmed her guess. The girl suggested that he immediately test the strength of the third in the ranking. The young man was filled with desire. Of course, he would be happy about it. Sierra stopped them. She didn't understand why this was necessary at all, why they were so eager to fight. Alicia just asked her to just watch. Then everything would become clear. The opponents stood opposite each other. The young man armed himself with a sword, but the hostess had no weapon. But she did not feel fear. She was filled with anticipation. She could personally see Lewis's sword technique. This made the girl's heart skip a beat with delight. The guy asked when they would start. The girl gave the decision into his hands, leaving him the right to decide when he was ready. The young man did not hesitate for long and rushed into the attack, thereby making it clear that the time had come. However, he didn't expect that a sword that came out of nowhere would aim at his eye with incredible speed. Even despite such suddenness, he managed to reflect the unexpected blow. The girl was impressed by his reaction speed. Sierra was very surprised by the appearance of the second sword. The young man immediately realized that it was magic. That's exactly how it turned out. It was the magic of creating swords that was passed down through generations. She created another blade again. The situation had indeed become clearer, so the girl did not look down on the swordsman. Alicia was clearly enjoying herself, wondering how Lewis would handle these swords. A hail of attacks rained down on him. The boy barely had time to dodge. Sword creation magic, as the name suggests, is a type of magic that allows the creation of blades. The girl's ancestors used it to provide swordsmen with weapons and support them on the battlefield. Since she herself also used swords, she did not neglect the water of swordsmen. However, the girl could not escape the fact that the modern generation was quite weak. For this reason, she was still not confident in Lewis's abilities. The girl created a new batch of weapons around herself. She begged the young man to convince her otherwise. He had no choice but to agree. In that case, he will show her all his sword techniques. At these words, the guy took a fighting stance. The girls watched the young man's actions in surprise. Then he gave the command to accelerate. He instantly covered the distance between them and found himself right in front of his opponent, simultaneously swinging his hand with the weapon for a counterattack. Alicia tried to gather all the swords together for protection. But it didn't help. The young man's blade turned out to be stronger. With one blow, he destroyed all her swords. They shattered into pieces, and the girl herself was thrown back. For a moment, she was surprised at how strong Lewis's arms were. It was hard to believe that such thin arms were capable of generating such power. His sword technique must have been very different. The guy caught up with her again, using his speed, catching his mistress off guard while she was thinking. She pretended to be in trouble, but at that very moment, a new blade was created, which she managed to put out and meet Lewis's sword. Sierra was surprised that the magician managed to block the blow. This time, the young man's blade did not destroy the enemy's weapon. It barely cracked. This happened because the girl put all her strength into only one sword. She joked to Lewis about not getting too close to a girl he had recently met. He was surrounded by a field of swords that emerged from the floor beneath his feet. This time he was lucky enough to jump back again so the blades didn't hit him. The girl was amazed at his ability to dodge. Lewis thought about her actions. First, the girl reacted to his speed, then blocked his blade and lured him into the area of her attack. Alicia was definitely on a different level than the other mages. The guy knew that if he continued to attack at the same speed, she would block again. Alicia didn't expect the boy to be able to dodge so many swords in such an inappropriate position. She created blades again. They began to appear from behind her. However, she believed that their fight was just beginning. The young man supported the girl. He himself was impatiently waiting to see what else she had prepared for him, because Lewis was sure that he would not disappoint her, but only if she managed to see his attack at all. The girl was already impatient. She readied her swords, and the guy sped up again. This time the speed was higher than the previous time, but this was Lewis's only advantage, and his line of attack was repeated. The girl calmed down and decided that it wouldn't be difficult for her anyway, but suddenly her defense of their blades began to crumble. Her eyes widened. The blade that had destroyed the swords was her own. Its appearance had come as a surprise to her. Lewis borrowed it. He missed his shot. The mage was amazed by the maneuvers performed by Lewis. The guy picked up her sword, then threw it in the girl's trajectory as bait and went around from behind, entering the blind spot. Alicia quickly realized that she could do nothing against this and voluntarily surrendered, while the young man again put the sword to her neck. The show fight was over. The guys returned to their usual state. The girl found it funny that she was third in the ranking and had to give up so easily. Lews thought the same, but she didn't show him her full strength, so he decided that the girl underestimated him. The girl responded by asking him to first enter the top 10 in the ranking if he wanted to see the full power. The guy decided that, in that case, he would have to wait a little. Sierra, however, was still trying to figure out how he did it. Now, it became clear what Lewis's sword technique was, he said release. But she herself would not be able to repeat something like that no matter how hard she tried. She noticed the young man's gaze on her. He smiled at her and promised that he would teach her. After all, friends should help each other. The friend looked timid. She wanted to know what the young man meant by the word friend. Auras say in class that friends help each other? Those were the teacher's words. Lews came to the conclusion that the lectures were bringing the girl to a standstill, a feeling he knew and understood, but Sierra didn't want to compare them. Alicia watched from the sidelines, admiring what good friends they were, and she too wanted to take some fencing lessons from Lews. The friend was taken aback. Why did the owner need this? What benefit did it give her? She thought it was quite a lot. Even if she uses up all her spells and only has one sword left, she will be able to continue fighting if she knows the basics of fencing. The young man was not against teaching her, but it seemed to him that magic and fencing were not compatible. His ball handling technique is based on the power that originated from inside his stomach. If he compared it to magic, he would call it sword power. The girl needs to be able to direct this power into the sword and control it with her will. In the previous fight, he had to direct the power into his nails. He also believed that the mages already had a similar type of energy, so there were suspicions that the owner would not be able to switch between them. The girl felt sorry when the young man told all this. Sierra also rubbed her mood. She touched her friend's hand. She asked if he already considered Alicia his friend. This was indeed the case. The girl simply agreed, but then their new acquaintance remembered something. Alicia had one request for the boys, and she asked them to listen to her. They gathered around the table, and the girl told them that several students from their school had recently gone missing. Friends were surprised how this could happen. Sierra had not heard anything about it. The reasons given by the administration, such as illness and family problems, were just a cover for the truth. No one knew exactly where they could be, and among the missing were also students from the top 10 rankings, so soon all the students would know about it. Sierra was worried about the missing people, wondering what could have happened to them. Alicia thought about the possibility of kidnapping. A friend decided to ask her if she had any ideas about who it could be, and she did have some ideas. The country bordering this kingdom is Revelsia, and the military dictatorship, the Ares Empire. This was a country that had been steadily increasing its military power in recent years. Their invasion was only a matter of time. They value powerful mages as a means to increase their power, which is why the Academy students have become targets. Alicia turned to Lews and asked for help to stop the impending disaster. Sierra didn't understand why he had to do it, since it would have been much more reasonable for the girl to apply to the magic faculty. However, Alicia considered such an idea impossible. In her opinion, in this situation, it was someone from the faculty who was involved. If an outsider had tried to break into the school, the warning magic would have alerted them, but since that didn't happen, it must have been the work of someone from the inside. Judging by the fact that even the ranking members were kidnapped, the instigator was quite an intelligent person. For this reason, Alicia excluded the students of the fencing department. She significantly reduced the list of suspects, but even so, it was difficult to clearly identify the culprit. Therefore, the girl had to ask Lews for help, but first he had to win the ranking competition. In this case, the probability that the culprit would reveal himself increased, because he would not want to ruin his reputation. Having said this, the girl drank tea with a smile, while her friends were not in the best mood. Two people dressed in dark clothes were sneaking away. One of them was bound with a magical rope. They arrived at the appointed place, where they were already expected. The kidnapper was praised for his excellent work and asked if there were any suspicions. The interlocutor asked not to worry. Such blunders were not his style. The man calmed down. In that case, everything was going well. Revelsia turned out to be a suitable hunting ground. The interlocutor smiled an unkind grin. He believed that there was also a lot of stupid prey there. The kidnapper was convinced that he had good intentions for Ares. The boys entered the wide, half-empty room and were amazed at how amazing the training hall looked. Sierra asked her friend if he was going to help Alicia. The guy answered a little affirmatively, but a little hesitantly. He already understood that the neighboring country was probably kidnapping magicians, and that the culprit could be a student of the faculty, but he was haunted by why the girl chose him, and why he needed to wait for the training competition. Sierra also voiced her opinion on the matter. She thought that Lews was meant to be used as a fitting, so it would be fair to give more information. Alicia admitted that her opinion was true. To begin with, the girl wanted to explain why it was necessary to wait for the training competition. For the Ares Empire, the ranked battle is literally a showcase of goods, allowing them to evaluate the abilities of the participants, as the mages will be showing off their skills without holding back. The guys still didn't understand why they would give them such an opportunity. There would probably be more casualties before the raiding battle started, so they had to act faster. That was the way things were, but they still didn't know what the enemies were planning. If they acted blindly, it would only make them more vigilant, making it harder to catch them. Alicia was about to ask her friends another question: why they thought the criminal was kidnapping students and handing them over to the Empire. They thought about the answer. The answer was simple: because he was rewarded, most likely, with money or a position. The principle was simple: the more powerful the stolen magician, the higher the reward. But what happens if during a raiding battle a swordsman appears who can defeat a mage? The enemy will no longer value mages whose abilities are lower than the swordsman. The value of the kidnapper falls, and with it the reward. Alicia was sure that this was when the criminal would make his move, because he would need to destroy the swordsman. Words. All you had to do was wait for him to make his move and catch him. Such a plan requires a very different kind of swordsman than Lews. Sierra was indignant at Alicia because she didn't even try to hide her intention to use the guy as bait. However, he himself would still take part in the tournament, and besides, the girl renovated their training room. No matter how you look at it, the deal turned out to be profitable. The young man once again clarified the information about the kidnapper, who managed to take away some of the top 10 members of the hierarchy. Lews was eager to see how strong they were. Then he asked his friend what she was planning to do. The girl did not understand the essence of his question. He explained that it was about her participation in the raiding battle. At first, Sierra was scared, but then she felt sad and refused. She wanted to explain the reason for her refusal, but their conversation was interrupted by an announcement from the administration. It said that all students who had to attend additional classes were asked to go to the lecture hall immediately. The young man apologized to Sierra and ran away. He completely forgot that he was signed up for additional classes and suggested rescheduling the training for another time. His friend tried to stop him, but the young man was no longer listening. She was left alone in the training room, her mood no longer so fighting. Despite the fact that Lews had left, the girl still decided to start practicing on her own. She took the sword in her hands and approached the mannequin. Closing her eyes, Sierra swung and threw a punch. She didn't like it. She realized that she still couldn't do it, because Lews was able to destroy it with ease right away. Sierra remembered that she had also been training since she was a child. The student kept lamenting why she couldn't do the same as her friend. It seemed to her that she was simply weak, or that she had no talent at all. The girl felt completely unworthy of participating in the raiding battle. Someone entered from behind, and was surprised to find that the young man was not in the room. Sierra turned around at the sound of the voice, and saw a girl in front of her. The girl, with a bored look, admitted that she wanted to meet the swordsman everyone was talking about. She asked the uninvited guest who he was. She, as if nothing had happened, continued asking if she had been studying. The girl was starting to get angry, because it was none of her business. The strange guest smiled slyly. Sierra seemed like the perfect toy for him to have a little fun with. Lews sat with his head propped up in his hand, looking bored. Apparently, there were both mages and swordsmen in the lecture hall, so any of them could have been the traitor. He was wondering what kind of person this criminal was. The young man had already begun to yawn. The voice of his desk neighbor was heard. He noticed that the young man was not particularly interested. However, the student supported the young man. He was not very happy either. Lews thought that all magicians loved studying, but the stranger thought that boring lectures were boring for everyone. The guy introduced himself as Zell. He was a first-year student in the magic faculty, and he was pleased to meet her. The hero also introduced himself, but the neighbor had already heard about him, because the guy was famous. He told Lews the local gossip. Many spoke of his luck during the duel and doubted his abilities. Despite this, one thing was certain: he was not very good at studying. The hero also noticed that Zell was used to saying everything straight out. In his defense, the young man also noted that they were both in the same place, which meant they weren't that different. The teacher closed the notebook and announced the end of the lecture. Now everyone had to review the material covered. Lews joked that with such a neighbor, time flew by unnoticed. and his new acquaintance agreed with him. Apparently, the feeling was mutual. The young man enjoyed talking to Zell. He expected to meet again, at extra classes, while his neighbor, on the contrary, tried not to run into them too often. The hand next to him slapped the table. The stranger was incredulous that the magician was communicating with the swordsman. The guys did not understand the complaint. He explained that the mage shouldn't have talked to the swordsman as if they were equals, as the guy was bringing shame on the magic faculty. Zell looked at the stranger with displeasure. He didn't understand his reaction. The young man noticed a necklace on the hero's new acquaintance and tried to grab the jewelry. He tore it from his neck, saying that he would confiscate it. The guy looked at the cord in his hand, wondering what kind of trinket it was. He decided that he didn't need it and was about to throw the necklace away. Zell tried to stop him in fear. To everyone's surprise, Lews, standing behind him, grabbed the stranger by the hand. Zell and Student were in shock, not understanding when he managed to get there. The young man threatened him. If he didn't stop picking on his neighbor, the boy would have to answer to him. This made an impression on the boy. Cursing, he had to return the item to its owner. Zell was grateful for the help, but the hero understood. This necklace meant a lot to him. This pendant was given to the young man by his younger sister as a good luck charm. Lews was pleased and asked his neighbor to take care of him. The friends laughed cheerfully. It seems that not all magicians are so bad. The hero wanted to somehow introduce Zell to Sierra so that she could learn about those mages who were kind to the swordsman. Meanwhile, the girl's situation was not going well. She got a lot of abuse from the uninvited guest. She frantically asked herself the same question. Who was this man in front of her? The enemy wanted to believe that this was not all that Sierra was capable of, because if it was, she would be greatly disappointed. The girl lay on the floor. She still had hope to find out who was in front of her. The enemy was surprised by her ignorance. It was Freya, a second-year student in the magic faculty, a genius who occupied third place in the ranking. Sierra was amazed. Before her stood the one they called the Fire Guardian. The girl asked what she was doing there. Freya had already told her that she had come to see another person. She wanted to meet the swordsman everyone was talking about, although she had some thoughts about knocking him down a peg or two. However, Emil still decided to save it for the raiding battle, because such a swordsman would definitely participate in it. And then she would simply destroy him. Sierra felt uneasy from this attitude. The second-year student headed for the exit. She was terribly irritated that that pathetic swordsman forgot his place. At the same time, she added that, in comparison with him, she liked the girl herself much more. Freya thought crawling on the floor suited her very well. She added defiantly that this was precisely what swordsmen could do best. Sierra gave up her teeth in anger and disappointment. She could not prove otherwise. The door slammed shut. The guest finally left. The teachers were in a meeting. Another student from the magic department had gone missing. Under these circumstances, they might have to reconsider holding a raiding battle. It might be better to focus on solving the current problem. The girl apologized and asked the professors for permission to express her opinion. Alicia thought their decision on this issue was premature. Those present were surprised, but she continued to speak. Canceling the battle would affect more than just the academy. Professor Bazette supported Alicia. It seemed like they all didn't understand that the raiding battle wasn't just some pathetic festival. The members of the ranking were sometimes assigned to be the king's personal guard, as well as to participate in other state affairs. The professor was sure that for the sake of Revelsia, they could not cancel the recruitment to the ranking. They need to be decisive in their choice and continue the raiding battle. Alicia understood this perfectly well too. For the good of the academy, it was decided to leave everything as is and hold the competition. Zell was going about his business when he was suddenly called out from behind. The bully who had picked on him in the lecture hall couldn't forget how the guy could dare to humiliate him, and he brought a whole crowd with him to sort things out. The young man, with an emotionless expression, only asked whether he had been watching him the whole time. The stranger was compensated for being made to look like a fool so he could not let Zell go unpunished, but the young man was exposed as to why he was being pursued, and not the swordsman. The bully insisted that it all started with his conversation with Lews. The guy was absolutely calm. It seemed like the stranger could only make fun of others. These words finally drove him crazy. He shouted to everyone who was with him to start acting. But Zell did not just stand by. Alicia was walking down the hallway when she suddenly bumped into Lews. She asked what he could be doing there. After all, it was the magic faculty. The guy scratched his head. It was an awkward situation. He got lost. The young man told her about his meeting with an interesting guy from this faculty. The girl found the hero very inspired. After that meeting, she asked who that man was. The whole crowd was routed. Zell still stood calmly. The bully only made more noise. He was already tired of all this. He looked at his pendant. Due to the large number of participants in the raiding battle, a qualification round was held to weed out the weak. In each block, 10 participants will fight against each other simultaneously in a battle royale. Only those who successfully make it to the block are allowed to participate in the final. The day of the qualifying round of the raiding battle arrived, and the students were on edge. Among this crowd was also Sierra. The girl did not look too happy. She remembered her own words when she said that she was not good enough to participate in the raiding battle. The girl became sadder and sadder, and the hero next to her admired how many students had gathered for the competition. He exclaimed happily and turned to his friend. Didn't she find it exciting? She didn't have time to answer him. The girl was called out. Freya approached them. She remembered Sierra, that cute swordswoman girl she met the other day. The girl did not share her pleasure from the meeting at all. Emil asked why she came. She hoped that the swordswoman had no intention of participating. Had she already forgotten how quickly the second year had managed to deal with her? Freya chuckled in displeasure and left. As a member of the rankings, she did not need to participate in the qualifying round. However, if Lews manages to break through to the top, everything will change. In that case, she would have to destroy this arrogant swordsman, personally for her. The girl drooped. Her friend looked at her in confusion. Suddenly, her eyes opened wide. She wanted to become stronger. She turned to the guy. He already understood everything. The girl had been doubting all this time whether she should participate in the competition. In any case, she could always refuse to participate. However, the young man believed that his girlfriend wanted to clear her family's name of shame. Sierra clenched her fist. Of course she wanted to. Zell, seeing Lews, came up to talk to him. The guy was surprised that his desk mate was also taking part. The boy laughed. He was glad that he wouldn't have to fight the hero in the qualifying round. The young man didn't understand why. He was looking forward to fighting together. But Zell thought differently. It was unknown what would happen if they had to fight. However, it would be better if it happened in the final. Lews was surprised by his comrade's reaction. The young man suddenly cheered up. This way he could increase his percentage of victories. After that, the young man wished the guys good luck in the battle. The hero wondered what Zell was talking about. Sierra thought that it was a declaration of war. It seems the guy was not one to be timid. The girl reminded him of their own approaching battle. The young man looked at his rivals with a smile, while Sierra, on the contrary, looked tense. Ibram knew that the hero would be there, and the guy was really looking forward to their hand-to-hand fight between 10 of them. The young man was surprised because of his hand-to-hand combat. Topa slowly surrounded the hero. The opponent explained that it would be an attack of 10 against 1. It didn't occur to the hero that if a swordsman appeared, then in such a situation he would be immediately attacked by a crowd. This is exactly what happened when a swordsman, forgetting his place, entered a raiding battle. Lews didn't look scared. On the contrary, he had already grabbed his weapon. The guy didn't think that 9 would attack 1 and that he would become a target. Now he was really angry. In that case, the opponents were also eager to begin. Ibram fired a fireball at him, causing death. The guy easily dispelled the magic with a blow from his blade and dodged the next shot so that the ball hit one of the attackers. The guy was horrified at how the hero was able to block the spell, but at that same moment, Lews approached him. The young man fell. The blow landed literally next to him. Ibram did not lose confidence. He reminded the guys that there were more of them, so there was a chance to cope. The hero casually attacked the instigator, but he was not going to give up. He was angry that the young man underestimated his abilities. Sierra was doing a little worse, not handling the number of enemies as confidently. They joked that her friend had no time for her and had something to do himself. They challenged her to decide what the girl should do now. The student intended to simply contact her, as he had done before. Sierra tried to reflect the magic, but to her great regret, she could not cut the ball. All she could do was dodge and not let herself get hit. The guy assured her that these ropes were woven with magic, and an ordinary swordsman would not be able to handle them. He persistently tried to catch her, but the girl continued to run. A student from the crowd pointed out that the guy was doing everything wrong. If you really wanted to see her suffer, you had to act differently. The young man showed exactly how to proceed. He locked the girl in a water prison. Sierra began to lose air, and the crowd simply watched the spectacle. The girl's face twisted again. She realized that this had happened to her again. She remembered the moment when Freya had done this to her. Even then, she had said that crawling on the floor suited Sierra very well. The second-year girl insisted that wasn't what swordsmen did best. The girl really tried poorly to cope with that mannequin. Sierra remembered her past, when she was a child and was first given a blade. Then how she learned and trained with it. How they fought swords together with a friend. She always practiced, but she could never do anything right. The girl tried to dispel the spell, but again it didn't work. Lewis's words came into my head about the sword's strength coming from training, and to those who spent the most time with their blade. However, the feelings could differ from person to person. For the young man, it was like clean water flowing through his body, but perhaps that was just his sensation. If she didn't have it that way, then her sword power was based on a completely different feeling. The girl wondered what this feeling could be. It was as if something was boiling inside her. Perhaps this was exactly what Lewis was talking about. The guy found the situation and the girl suffering funny, and with an unkind attitude, he decided to help her. He aimed his stone fist straight at the water ball. Unexpectedly, Sierra gave up her hand. She had really suffered enough already. She didn't want to continue any longer. The girl managed to destroy the spell and break the stone fist directed towards her. The crowd was very surprised by this turn of events. They could not have expected anything like this. At that very moment, a change occurred in Lewis, and he realized that his friend had finally understood everything. Then it was probably his turn. The instigator screamed for the swordsman to stay away from him. But it was too late. With one blow, the hero won. The whole jar was destroyed, and the young man, pleased with himself, walked away. Someone was watching what was happening like a huge ball. He understood that the situation was taking a serious turn. If this swordsman continued to interfere with their mission, then they will have no choice but to destroy him. The hero was happy. He and Sierra had done it and passed the qualifying round, but his friend didn't look as happy. He asked what was the matter. After all, they had defeated the magicians. Wasn't that a reason to rejoice? She confirmed that it was so, but it was still difficult for her. The conversation was interrupted by Alicia, who suddenly entered and loudly congratulated her friends. The girl was surprised by her arrival. What could she be doing there? But the magician just wanted to congratulate them. The hero expressed his gratitude to her. The girl was surprised. She didn't think that even Sierra would pass. Her friend snapped. Apparently it was because she wasn't needed. However, Alicia didn't think so. It was just a big misunderstanding. Suddenly, a magical shot flew from behind the girl, straight at Sierra. She only managed to put her sword out, but she was still thrown back. She asked in horror what her friend had done, but Alicia, without expressing any particular feelings, merely noted that the girl had not yet fully mastered her power. Lewis's ball-handling technique would destroy her blade. If Sierra can't consistently use her power to its full potential, she won't make it to the finals. But one thing remained interesting. Why was it so difficult for other swordsmen to master the hero's technique? The guy considered it his fault. He hardly communicated with anyone, and was too focused on his training to pass on his techniques to anyone. That is why fencing stopped developing and fell into decline, forcing Sierra and others like her to live in an era of humiliation. Yet he still called himself a sword master. As one who loved the sword, the young man had to pass on his legacy. Alicia didn't want to disturb their training. There was still time before the final. She hired herself to see a brilliant victory in the upcoming battles. The friends looked at her silently. The girl asked if Freya had already heard that the swordswoman she had been playing with had made it to the finals. The second-year student stretched out in a snail she was to say something. Surprised. She laughed and walked away, the girl realizing that she remembered it much better than she did. Freya was excited to fight this swordswoman. Now she was really getting interested. She was impressed that the girl had honed her skills in such a short time. Perhaps their games had not been in vain. She was going crazy with anticipation of when she would be able to break her new, sharpened blade. She turned her attention to another student and asked if, since she was there, they could play together. The man was beside himself. It seemed like those nasty swordsmen had made it to the finals. So he wanted Zell to deal with Lewis. The guy didn't respond to this. A mage who couldn't defeat a swordsman was of little value to the Empire, and to regain the lost value of the goods, he had to be gotten rid of. The guy clarified that he just had to win, but that wasn't enough. The man was in a determined mood and ordered the swordsman to be killed. After all, he had no right to live. If he became an obstacle, then they had no choice but to destroy him. Zell believed that there was no need for that. The man grabbed the boy and asked him in a threatening manner whether the young man really thought he could refuse. The employer reminded him that family was important, so he had to do as he was told. Zell had no choice but to simply agree. He already understood everything. Sierra was about to go get a new sword and asked if her friend would go. He decided to take this opportunity to explore the capital. Only the girl asked him not to get lost. The young man assured her that this would not happen. After some time, the guy stood there in confusion, not understanding where he was. He knew that the capital was big, but this was a completely different part of the city. Ahead, he noticed a child being attacked by a dog. The girl looked in horror at the disheveled, angry beast. She screamed, and at that moment the dog rushed at her. But a moment later, the girl realized that nothing had happened and opened her eyes. In front of her, she saw a young man. He asked her if she was okay. However, the dog next to him, from an angry dog, turned into a cute little animal that liked to be petted. The beast ran away, and the girl expressed gratitude to her savior. The guy asked her what happened, and it turned out she wasn't feeling well. The girl lived somewhere nearby, and he decided to walk her if she showed him the way. Besides, Lewis himself was lost and not doing anything anyway. They arrived at the scene. The young man asked if she had a family, but the girl only had an older brother. In that case, she should hurry. He was probably very worried about his sister. She thanked the young man again for his help and shouted that she was back. The young man opened the door and immediately scolded Elle excitedly for not being allowed to go out alone. The hero stood frozen in surprise while the brother and sister talked, but then Zell noticed him. They were both surprised by each other's presence. Elle slept peacefully, and Lewis told his friend about everything that happened to her, how she was attacked by a stray dog. The guys were sitting at the table. The neighbor once again thanked his friend for the fact that with his help, his sister got home safely. The hero asked if he lived only with his sister. The audience said that they lost their parents due to an accident, and the hero felt sorry for them. Now, Elle was his only bright memory, and the girl was sick. The boy swore he would do anything to protect her. Lewis admired that attitude. Then he turned to Zilu so that his friend would know that if he needed help, he could always turn to him, because the hero was always happy to help a friend in trouble. The young man left the neighbor's house. Zell closed the door and froze in mixed feelings. It was in his head that Lewis had called him a friend, and besides, he had actually helped him and his sister at the right time. He stroked the girl's head while she slept. Despite the fact that the hero was a good guy, Zell would still do anything for his sister. The young man was absolutely certain that he would kill Lewis to stitch up his only remaining family. He was ready to become a monster if necessary. And so each of them holds tightly to their thoughts, while time inexorably passes. The day of the final of the raiding battle arrived. Lewis asked his friend if she could handle it. The girl answered uncertainly. However, her friend supported her. There was nothing to worry about, because the last few days had not been in vain. The guy instilled in her a return, so that she would show everyone who was boss. It really helped her. The girl boldly moved forward. That's exactly what she had to do. The young man was clearly pleased with his friend's fighting spirit. His time had come too. He went to the arena. Lewis fought against Zell, and Sierra fought against Freya. Emil was surprised. In front of her stood a small newbie who was unlucky enough to fight her. Sierra insisted that her rival had some kind of arrogance. The situation was different for the guys. Lewis was glad that his opponent was Zell, but the guy himself did not express his feelings. He just watched silently. The rules were announced. The winner is declared when the opponent loses the ability to fight or surrenders. Then it was necessary to clarify the readiness of the fighters, and the start was announced. Sierra rushed forward, hoping to attack before her opponent could use her magic. Emil was delighted. The girl decided to immediately rush into attack. But she felt sorry for the swordsman because that was the only way they could fight. She released a huge amount of fire at the girl. Then she asked if she was still lagging, but at that moment, Sierra cut her magic with a sword. At the same time, she looked quite cold-blooded, which made Freya's eyes sparkle, which was a completely different matter. Zell was very downcast, while his opponent, on the contrary, was eagerly awaiting the opportunity to fight together. However, the next moment, the neighbor also replied that he shared his feelings, but although the hero was a powerful and experienced swordsman, the guy was disappointed. Lewis did not understand what he meant. Zell pointed his finger at him. Ready to fire magic, he felt sorry for fighting under such circumstances. The hero didn't have time to think anything before an attack came flying at him. The scale of the impact was impressive. It left a dent in the ground. The guy asked his friend to be glad that his death was not in vain.